Welcome to Sikhcast, brought to you by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. My name is Jasleen Kaur and I'm a translator on the Guru Granth Sahib project. We're excited to announce the release of Guru Nanak Sahib's Thiti. A couple of background points about this composition. So Thith refers to a date or a fortnight depending on context. And this Shabad, as you might remember from previous compositions that have Thiti in the title, is set in the paradigm of moon-based calendars and the practice of astrologers or fortune tellers using the calendar and the phases of the moon to dictate what particular days someone ought to be doing certain things. So this practice is still quite prevalent in South Asia and globally. And this largely dictates the strategies of lenders, spiritualists, politicians, everyday people, and results in a kind of transactional understanding of spirituality. So Guru Nanak Sahib, throughout this composition, takes those existing paradigms and systems of understanding and ritual and transaction and turns them on their head to simplify things for the common person. So on top of that, I think it's important to mention that this composition is revealed in the rag or musical mode of Bilaval. And Bilaval is a rag of auspiciousness. Again, this idea of auspiciousness comes up, happiness and accomplishment, and a kind of determination to do certain things. So in the context of the Guru Granth Sahib, compositions revealed in this rag center around a kind of happiness experience through union with the divine that results in that kind of ecstasy or joy or bliss that people seek. So I thought I would just focus on the first composition because this is a composition that has one Raha line and 20 pauris. And so you'll see even in the commentary that the Raha line gets repeated because it's where the Guru is asking us to pause and reflect. And in the Raha line, the Guru says, Kya jap japo bin jagadise, gur ke sabad mahal kar dise raho. So the translation of this is, which recitation may I recite other than the Naam of Jagdish? Through the Shabad of the Guru, the mansion, the abode of Jagdish becomes visible. So there's a few things to discuss here, right? Because there's a lot of native terms. So here Guru Nanak, through the seeker's voice, is asking what else we can engage in other than the Naam, the identification with IkOankar, with the One. And the name or attribute that's invoked here is Jagdish, which is the owner of the world. So the Guru is asking, what can we even involve ourselves in or engage ourselves in other than sort of remembrance and identification and praise of the One, the owner of the world? And the second part of the Raha line, the Guru says, it's through the Shabad, through the hymn-like stanza that exemplifies the word sound of the infinite wisdom, through our relationship with that wisdom, that we come to see or find the abode of the One. And going back to this contextualization of auspiciousness or inauspiciousness, there are so many traditions or belief systems that have these systems that claim to help us see the One or experience the One or grant us that kind of sight or vision in the afterlife. And so when we talk about the abode of IkOankar, what we're maybe a better way to say that is okay, where is IkOankar present? And we know that in the Sikh paradigm, the understanding is that the One is present everywhere. So the abode of IkOankar actually becomes everywhere in all places. And so that means that in the Raha line, the Guru is showing us that through the wisdom in the Shabad, we can feel that all-pervasive presence of the owner of the world and realize that the abode of that One is all-encompassing. So it's through the wisdom that is in the Shabad, through a relationship with the Shabad, that we feel or live in the presence of the One. In the first sort of body of this composition, Guru Nanak Sahib reminds us again and again that IkOankar is distinct. So the word uses IkOankar, which is specifically about the unique and distinct form of the One. And this is really important because in the context of the sort of Indic cosmologies that the Guru is referring to, maybe indirectly here, there are so many forms that exist. And Guru Nanak says, that might be all well and good, but there's only one form that is eternal and unborn, and that one does not belong to any caste or any bondage. which is important because it's not just that systems and paradigms of inauspiciousness and auspiciousness are being turned on their head. There's also systems of othering and social hierarchy that are being disrupted too. I think that it's also important to understand that the guru's sort of modus operandi here, the MO of the guru, is not to condemn systems of thought or paradigms that already exist. So there's many references to different schools of thought, different practices, different understandings of the world, different ways that human beings have tried to understand the world, presented in various forms. This isn't a condemnation of any of those things. There's like an understanding that knowledge evolves and develops. And then there's also an urging towards a simpler understanding of the unicity and all that multiplicity, of the like deep oneness of all things. So if I could summarize this composition, because it is 2040s, I would say that Guru Nanak Sahib uses that paradigm of the moon-based calendar and the culturally sort of pervasive practice of seeking guidance from astrologers and fortune tellers that use that calendar in pursuit of like a spiritual currency. He disrupts all the like localized understandings of religious deeds and rituals and paradigms, complexes, categories, etc., to show us that external displays of religiosity or going through particular modes of religiosity can feed that more transactional understanding of our spiritual journeys and an expectation, a constant expectation of reward. And when we're too entangled in those things, our lenses become quite small, our perspectives become quite small, and we tend to engage in hypocrisy and pretense. We like pretend that we're spiritual at particular times, but we don't do the like internal work of changing our behavior and our understanding in the long run. So if we can return to that aha line where we're asked to pause and reflect, Guru Nanak Sahib is simplifying all of the complexities that I just discussed and saying, what can I do? What recitation can I recite other than the Nam of Jagdish? How can we snap ourselves out of our own entanglement and our seeking of like spiritual reward and really reflect on the only thing that's worth our time, which is engaging in the identification with IkOankar? Who can we identify other than Jagdish, the owner of the world? We are shown this throughout the composition, and we are shown that it's through the Shabad, through the wisdom, through the relationship that we have with the Guru, and through grace that we can come to experience that all-pervasive presence of the One and really reach the kind of like quote unquote exalted state that we seek no matter what paradigms we're operating within, the kind of freedom from fear and suffering that we all hope to experience. So the question then becomes, will we walk this path that is actually not so complex, but is in a way scarier because it doesn't have that system of rewards that feel really like tangible, and free ourselves from our own hypocrisy, our own pretense? What would it look like for us to identify with that owner of the world instead of identifying with these complicated systems that lead us into sort of exhaustion in the end? So I encourage you to spend some time with this composition, the footnotes, the commentaries, the translations and transcreations, the word meanings, as always, and reflect on what complex systems and paradigms you might be working within, that you'd like to kind of free yourself from so that you can engage in the worthwhile work of fostering a relationship with the Guru, with the wisdom, and thus a relationship with IkOankar. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Read the translations and commentaries at gurugranthsahib.io.
You are listening to Sikhcast by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.